It is a football Friday, and we're at Linhoff Stadium in the beautiful city of Schertz, Texas, where the Steel Knights will play host to the Brandeis Broncos today. Tonight, that is, 7 o'clock pregame, 7:30 kickoff. Jason Minix will have your call for that extravaganza.
It should be a lot of fun tonight. R.J. Ochoa many years ago would be here with us at a stadium getting ready for these. Instead, he's hunkered down in the home office, joining us now on the Buyers Barricades guest line. RJ, Reinagel, in teasing you coming up, said he wondered if you were going to survive the Micah Parsons situation, and he's glad that you're still with us. You doing okay, my friend?
It's great to be with some old friends. First of all, I hope that you're getting your weekly Frito pie, Jason, your weekly batch of disgustingness. I mean, I've survived the trade. It's dumb in a lot of ways. I do have a question, though. What insane asylum are you guys in? Like, do you get, outside time? Do you get recess? Like, what's going on here?
Well, we're in the press box at Linhoff Stadium, and I guess in the background it might look that way to a degree.
Purely white walls. Like you guys aren't allowed,
that's true.
Any loved ones materials or anything. So
well, I
should have put a picture up here. You're right. It looks a little weird,
yeah,
but
I mean, this is our view from the 47-yard line from my seat as we get ready. And to your point, though, RJ, we technically are locked in here
for 4 hours. You for a lot longer.
Well, at least until they open up the stadium, which is probably, I don't know, 5 or 5:30, because we got to check into school. It's hard to get into a school these days. And the lady that brought us up here, they locked the elevator. She's like, if you leave, you can't get back in.
Famous last words. Okay.
Yeah, we get no outside time tonight. I won't get any outside time tonight until probably 10:30, 10:45, and I just pray to God I don't get locked into the stadium.
Yeah, no kidding, right? That's a nice press box, though.
It is. It's got a bathroom, food.
Yeah,
we're good.
All kidding aside, though, RJ, I know that you were very upset with your football team, the Dallas Cowboys, for the way they handled the Micah Parsons situation. Even before the trade, you were upset, and anybody that follows you could tell that pretty clearly. And are you still not happy with this thing, or have you gotten over it?
For me, it's not a matter of, Micah played well last night, so I'm extra mad, it twists the knife or anything. I think it's to move on. My stance on it is, I think it's silly to be like, I get all these, people in my mentions are you just go right about the Packers now, dude? It's like, dude, they have their first round picks for 2 years. Like, you recognize they're literally tied to the success of Green Bay. But beyond all of that, you want to trade him, fine. And I've told you guys this about Dak last year. I would have killed them if they had let Dak go. But there had to be a point where they said, okay, we're prepared to live with the consequences of this. And if you commit to a plan, I may disagree with the plan, but at least all of your energy is moving in one singular direction. Jerry said today, right, to members of the local media, like, this gives us our best chance to win the Super Bowl. I would totally buy that batch of lies if he said it in April because they traded him then. But to do it when they did, how they did, was quite literally doing it in the most inefficient manner possible. That's my entire stance on the situation.
100% agree. If you're going to trade him, even though you told us for 2 years you were going to pay Dak, CD, and Micah, but if you were going to trade him, there was better timing, and you might have gotten a better haul, likely to have gotten a better haul. Is what it is. You look at their game last Thursday, it feels like forever ago, but their game last Thursday, and quite honestly, they look like a real competent football team. They had a solid plan offensively. I thought they ran the ball as good as they've run it. Zeke was in his prime, and defensively they didn't look bad outside of Jalen Hurts killing him with his legs. And I like the adjustments in the second half. I felt better about the Cowboys, no moral victory, but better about the Cowboys in the way this season could play out after watching them in that opener against Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think of all the teams who lost last week, there's arguably none who feel better. Again, not to call it a moral win or anything like that. Maybe the Jets, right? The Jets kind of showed up and showed out and are probably feeling pretty tall. I'll be curious to see what the defense looks like. I am willing to say that maybe some of their efforts were aided by the delay. I think it was very clear that cooled off both offenses. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I was, Javonte Williams looked fantastic, and I know everybody's putting on Miles Sanders' fumble, which can't happen, but he did have a big run right before it that we're just, throwing away because he fumbled. I think that Brian Schottenheimer deserves an enormous amount of credit from a head coaching perspective, that he had these dudes ready to go a week after Jerry tossed in, 5 grenades into the press box they were locked into and said, deal with it. And from an offensive coordinator standpoint, it was the first legitimate outing we got to see from him as a play caller. I know he obviously was calling plays in the preseason. I think we're all willing to say they were experimenting, kind of toying around with Joe Milton, figuring out what he could do for them as a franchise. So the arrow is definitely pointing up. But I will say all those good vibes completely dissipate if you fall to 0-2 and if you are the group that finally loses to the New York Giants.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's going to be tough, and you hope that doesn't happen. Look, RJ, I was impressed with the performance against Philadelphia, and I will say, whether the delay or not, they should have won that football game. You can point at Miles Sanders' fumble. That was a big fumble, no question. But then you look at CeeDee Lamb. That guy has got to play better. I don't care how you like him, what you think about him. He has got to make some of those catches. I mean, it's just that simple, because Dak's going to continue to go back to him time and time again.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I took some heat on the internet because I put some of the points of the game on Dak. And I know that, I think that universally people walked away saying Dak was not the main reason that they lost. I certainly think it's fair to put, a piece of the blame on him. They got the ball 3 times in the second half, all after the delay, facing a 4-point deficit, and didn't put a singular point on the board. Now, again, Dak can't catch the ball for CeeDee. That's not my point. We all understand. We all saw he put the ball right in his hands. And I agree that if we're ranking dudes and their responsibility, CeeDee and Jake Ferguson probably fall at the very top. But to your point, Joe, I mean, this could be a team who in week 17, week 18 is on the fringe, on the cusp of this or that, whether that's a playoff appearance in general, the division, if you want to really dream big, the 1 seed in the bye, stuff like that. And you're going to look back and you're going to go, damn it, we had 3 straight possessions where we could have gone and taken the lead, and we couldn't do that. Yes, we could say that was CeeDee Lamb's fault, but ultimately the offense failed. And again, I do think some of that was the delay and everybody cooling off.
Well, and again, I thought two of Dak's biggest moments in that game, the tackle on the Miles Sanders fumble,
right,
and baiting Jalen Carter into getting ejected before snap number 1. That was a hell of a game plan. In fact, I even heard Brian Schottenheimer say this morning on the Morning Huddle with Rob and AJ that he wants Dak spitting all over the field as much as he possibly can on Sunday before they play the New York Giants. That said, what are you looking forward to most after we've seen them play? And, the preseason, we didn't get to learn much about this team. What we saw in Oxnard, we did see a lot of that offensively on the field in Philadelphia. What do you expect to see against the New York Giants?
I think that we expect to see the passing game have success. And I think ultimately all we care about is win. But they didn't score through the air last week. The 2 touchdowns were Javonte Williams. And that's, look, it's week 1, it's 1 game. Nobody's trying to say like they suck and they're a bunch of losers. But, we've rightfully bagged on CeeDee Lamb and how he needs to improve his game. But, George Pickens didn't have a big play. And I don't think we think George Pickens sucks or anything like that. And it's 1 game and there's only so many big plays to be found. But I think we're ready to see this offense kind of take flight. We're ready to see, Dak, because Dak did play very well. And I don't think it was primarily his fault that they lost, but it's a matter of, okay, how can you take the fact that Dak is playing really well, the fact that you have this star-studded, pass-catching trio, if you throw Jake Ferguson, how can you take that and utilize it to a degree that you win? This is a team who the Cowboys have dominated, not just beaten, but dominated historically in the last decade. I mean, it's been for like the last time they, lost to this team, Game of Thrones was still cool in some people's minds. Like it's been, forever and ever and ever. So I think that you really want to see yourself. This is, I think this is San Jose State to kind of keep it topical at the moment. You lose, to Ohio State, okay, fine. Everyone's willing to understand. We don't need to see anybody making faces like they're in a stall or whatever, but you need to go blow them out because they're them and you're you.
Wow. San Jose State. Okay. Look, I think the Giants have a lot of issues. There's no doubt about it. But the one issue they don't have, RJ, is that defensive line. And they put some heat on Daniels last week. And I think they'll put some heat on Dak this week. So that's going to mean that passing game, to me anyway, is going to have to be a lot quicker. Dak's going to have to get the ball out of his hand a lot quicker in this game. If he does that, I think they'll have great success. And I said earlier in the week, RJ, if you've got CeeDee Lamb on your fantasy team, I think you're in for a big day.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can definitely sense there's a bit of you hate to call it revenge game, but an atonement game or something coming from CD. I hope the Giants send pressure. I know that all the people who absorb U2 on Facebook will disagree, but Dak is among the best quarterbacks in the NFL against the blitz and against pressure specifically. And so I would almost invite that. That is when Dak Prescott is in his most prime element. Where things start to fall apart is if New York is able to get home without sending extra pressure. If that defensive line that you talked about, Joe, back to the days of when the Giants were dominating the Cowboys, the 2007 through 2011 run, if they're able to win that way, then all of a sudden this does become a conversation. Even Russell Wilson is one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yes. Well, he is. Yes. Although when you talk about the pressure, Cowboys offensive line did not allow a sack last week against Philadelphia. But they also didn't have Jalen Carter. And, Dak kind of mentioned afterwards, Carter's out. They adjusted some things because they didn't have to account for that guy. Overall, though, that offensive line was a big question mark heading into the season. They graded out extremely well according to Pro Football Focus and those people that do that sort of stuff. And more importantly, they didn't allow the sack. Was that in your mind, one of the more impressive things that you saw from the team on Thursday against Philadelphia?
Yeah, I think it had to be. Are there things you want to clean up and do you want to see CD play better? Absolutely. But an exercise I like to do is to ask who on the team is the Jenga piece. Non-quarterback, obviously, because Dak is that guy. And by that, I'm talking the guy who you pull him out and the whole structure comes tumbling down. And to say left tackle is a bit of an extension of the quarterback, but that's the reality, right? Like if this offensive line isn't serviceable or legitimate or even very good, then nothing they want to accomplish is possible, right? And we'll see that bear itself out potentially on Sunday if they fail. But if the offensive line can hang and can do what they need to do, all of a sudden Javonte Williams, this dude we were laughing at ago, or I guess 10 days ago, is a legitimate starting running back in the NFL. All of a sudden Dak Prescott has the time he needs. All of a sudden these plays can legitimately develop because that group up front. And I think where it's easy to get even more excited is they are so young. They're all so raw and green and new together as a cohesive group that it does feel like, holy crap, they may have reincarnated Tyron Smith, Travis Frederick, and Dak Prescott.
That's absolutely true. And they've invested, some assets into that offensive line. So those guys do need to perform and play like the number one picks that they were. Let's go to the defensive line. And to me, it's the deepest part of this team. When you've got that, they bring in a Kenny Clark, but they had Clowney come in the other day. And I'm not sure why, RJ. Can you explain it to me? I really believe that they're deep. I think they've got some good young talent on that defensive line. Why do you want to bring in a guy like Jadeveon Clowney?
Well, first of all, I'm talking to two newsbreakers in that regard. So kudos to you guys for interviewing Stephen from what also looks like an insane asylum, if I may add. But that being said, I think when we think of players like Clowney, we think of rushing the passer and sacks and those types of plays. But he has been, Jason mentioned Pro Football Focus, he's been one of the better run defending edge rushers in the NFL for some time. That was always, we've talked so much about the loss of Micah Parsons. The Cowboys are still navigating life without DeMarcus Lawrence. And he was truly elite at that. And everybody would give him grief because he had the contract, he wouldn't get the sacks, but he was incredible at defending the run. And I maintain, people put so much stock into what the Cowboys said. They wanted to get better against stopping the run with the Micah trade. And people are holding them to that like it was serious, conversation. It's a matter of, dude, they had to say something. Like at this point, you're just talking to just get everyone to go away. But that being said, I do think that Clowney helps their cause against the run. people act like this is a new phenomenon. The reason the Cowboys have lost in the playoffs time and time and time again isn't because of Dak, isn't because of Micah. It's because they do not eat glass the way the big boys up front for other teams do. The 49ers owned them in the trenches. The Packers owned them in the trenches. And so that isn't a new phenomenon. It's something they've been chasing for a very long time. And so it makes sense to toss out as a bit of low-hanging fruit as to why you did the super genius Micah Parsons trade or whatever. But I do think that Clowney helps in that capacity.
RJ Ochoa from bloggingtheboys.com with us here on the Blitz. And you mentioned the interview yesterday we did with Stephen Jones, who did say Clowney is still on the table. But he quickly when I mentioned Stephon Gilmore, Bland's going to miss a couple of weeks. I still think that's one of the weaker areas. And Steven didn't want to entertain the idea of bringing in Gilmore for a look-see, which is a little surprising, or anybody else. They like their young guys, they say. Do you buy it?
I mean, I buy that they believe it. You know, I don't know that that they should. It's funny how nothing ever came of the Stephon Gilmore walking by the pre-draft press conference, thing. Like, that was truly just a random happenstance. But I would offer that it is Deron Blake's side. It is concerning how there has been no talk about Savon Ravel, how he had the setback that caused him to not be ready right away. And that they have just completely and totally ignored that position. And I mean, remember early on, they were acting like Trayvon Diggs was like on the top of their list. I mean, like, they really hated Trayvon Diggs, right? And now Steven's like, I tell you what, we're super pumped about Trayvon. And so how desperate are you guys that now all of a sudden you're, picking up Trayvon's dry cleaning and shining his shoes for him because you hated him not too long ago. So I agree with you, Jason. They have the second most salary cap space in the NFL, and that's where I'm going to really hold their feet to the fire is in March and April if they're not active in free agency after this Micah Parsons situation. But you can capitalize on it now, and so there's no reason why you shouldn't be involved in here. With all due respect, nobody needs to see you pinning and putting all of your hopes and dreams on. I love Kyrie Elam, but on him and Reddy Stewart and safeties playing a nickel, like, go get help. Use the money that you have at your disposal.
Well, I tell you what, I'm glad you brought up Siobhan Ravel because I'd kind of forgotten about the guy, to be honest with you. Nobody was talking about this guy. And I think, once he gets healthy, I think he's going to be a key piece to that secondary.
That's great. And I agree with you and believe that. But when is that going to be?
That's a good question.
Week 2, and Kalen Carson is on injured reserve. I mean, we also forget Trayvon Diggs miraculously was able to play in week 1. So it's not like he's the, pinnacle of health right now. I mean, this whole thing is a little bit like house with a little piggy built out of straw. You know what I mean? Like one huff and a puff. And this structure is really going to, fall apart. And so, yeah, and someone is going to sign Stephon Gilmore to y'all's point, right? Like someone's going to finally say, you know what, let's do it. And then who are you going to sign? Who's going to be your dude at that point? You have to be thinking ahead. You can't just be looking at the New York Giants on Sunday.
Absolutely. RJ, before we let you go, is Monday going to be a victory polo Monday for you and the boys at Blogging the Boys?
Dude, I mean, look, I hate this team more than most people, right? But it is the New York Giants, right? Like, let's be serious. Let's be adults here. And I will say that I think if they win on Sunday, we are going to cope ourselves, and rightfully so, into thinking that they're going to go beat Chicago next week. They're probably going to lose and look bad in the process. And, you don't have to squint hard to see a world where they're 2-1 getting into the Packers week. And imagine they rip off 3 straight wins to get to 3-1 and hand Green Bay their first loss of the season. Like, holy crap, October will be phenomenal. I really, and that's also the weekend of the Ryder Cup. Like, it's a great time to be back. I'm super pumped to see 3 of my favorite people in the whole world. I hope you each eat something delicious. Get a kielbasa while you're there. High five, shake everybody's hand, kiss some babies. It's football season. It rules.
It is, RJ.
It is.
I'm glad you're happy, and I'm glad you survived the whole Micah Parsons ordeal.
People do dumb things. That's just really what it comes down to. And they'll do dumber ones. I can promise you that.
I'm sure they will.
Keeps us all employed.
Exactly.
RJ Ochoa, grab a Frito pie tonight in honor of high school football. Make sure you follow RJ on Twitter at RJ Ochoa and read them and watch them at bloggingtheboys.com. The great RJ Ochoa on the Buyers Barricades guest line, where they provide traffic control, rental, and sales for San Antonio and beyond, online at buyersbarricades.com.